IVM.
There's a quick survey to fill out on ivmpodcast.com/survey. It lets us know a little bit more about who's listening to us. And you know what? We're going to do a few prizes. So, we'll do a random drawing of maybe 10 people and we'll send you all some swag. Remember, that's ivmpodcast.com/survey where you can fill out the survey.
Hello and welcome to the Habit Coach podcast. I am Ashdin Doctor, your habit coach. And today with us for a second time, we have Tonia Lyon. And we're going to talk about understanding how do we start designing the perfect life for ourselves. So we discussed understanding values, etc. in the first episode. If you haven't heard that, please go listen to that. So this one flows and makes sense. All right, let's dive into the episode. Enjoy. You touched upon an important point, which you said that once you understand what you want to change, only then start thinking about changing it. And many people say that, why should I change anything? Everything is, you should have acceptance and you should have this and you should have why should I design to change something?
Yeah.
Why are they finding it difficult to change, or why are they hiding behind this word acceptance?
I think that some of us are wired more for ambition than others. I think that some of us just have a deep desire to keep learning and keep growing. And I have learned that not everybody feels this way, that plenty of people are perfectly happy being who they are at this moment, and they don't have any desire to change. And what I've learned to do is to let those people be who they want to be without judging and without advice giving, right? And I have several people in my life that are like that. And I used to get really frustrated because it's easy for people like me to judge and think, I know better for you. But it's not true. I don't know better for other people. I don't even know what's right for me half the time. So I tell my children all the time, we got to keep our eyes on our own paper. All right. Let's keep our eyes on our own paper. You handle your work, right? I'm going to do my own inner work and you're going to do your work, and whatever that looks to you. And this is where we get a chance to bring compassion, because I do think that even though some of us are more wired for ambition and learning than others, some people get stuck because of trauma. Some people get stuck because really hard things happen to them in their lives and they shut down a part of themselves. And that breaks my heart for people. At the same time, we can't do that work for them. We can't heal them. We can't change them. We can love them right where they are and invite them into our process, like tell them about how the work that we've been doing on ourselves has improved our lives. But we got to let them be who they are and love them and not judge them. And even now, as I'm talking, I can tell that I'm still judging people. I am still judging them for not wanting to do the work. And it's only because I really want everybody to live the most abundant, joy-filled life possible. And it really does break my heart to see people unable to let go of pain from their past when I know that there's a path forward, when I know that there's a way to process pain and dark thoughts, like we talked about. There's a way to process these things, to welcome them into our experience, to integrate them into our experience, and then to allow them to be used to help other people. Because I believe that at the end of the day, we're all placed here in order to learn from one another and to make the world a better place. So, and that may be Pollyanna, but that's what I believe.
Yes. And the way that I used to think about it, when people ask me, why are you trying to work so hard on yourself? Why are you working so hard on yourself? And I said that I think all of us have, I wouldn't say responsibility, because responsibility is a heavy word, but we would love to make the world a better place, right? And we make and if we are a part of the world, if we work on ourselves and we become better, we're taking steps to making the world a better place. So you do what you can do to do that. And you start working on yourself first, and then you start seeing it and changing. And you're right. We might say we don't judge, but I sometimes want to pick these people up with their shoulders and just shake them and say, start doing something.
Yeah.
It takes a while. It takes a certain amount of restraint now to stop doing that.
Yeah.
That's a very interesting point. We're doing all these things, right? We can sit down, we can think about the self-work, we can write our lists on things that we like, what our inner critic is doing. How do we start taking action? Do you see that as a step that completely shuts down, and like people want to learn, people like to do thinking, and
Absolutely.
then nothing happens?
Absolutely. Oh yeah. And I have to admit I do this too, but I think it's easier it's easier to notice it in other people, isn't it? Like it's so much easier to notice it in other people. I have this one wonderful client who was telling me about how he wants to exercise, but he just had a hard time getting into the regular habit of exercising. And so I would offer suggestions and he would come up with suggestions. And then at the end of the day, he would still not do the work that he said he wanted to do. And what I think can happen, again, we can say we want to do something, but until we're internally motivated to actually get it done, it's not ever going to get done. So we have to determine what's our why. What is the why behind the reason why I want to work out? So the people that I know that are the most motivated to work out usually have an inner drive based on something either that's happened to them or happened to someone else, like a sickness or a death in the family, heart disease, something like that, that tells them, I got to exercise because I don't want to end up like my uncle or something like that, right? And then once you actually get started with exercises, there is a runner's high. There is that sense of strength and well-being that comes when you do actually exercise regularly. But the thing is that nobody can do that for me. My coach can't do that for me. My mom can't do that for me. No one can do it for me. I have to decide for myself what's important to me. And then it brings us back to our values again, right? If trust and gratitude and compassion, all those things are important to me, what's important to notice is that I want to have those things for myself too. So if I'm going to choose to have compassion for myself, well, then I should probably build habits that will make me care for my own body, not just other people's bodies, right? Not just, feeding my kids and stuff like that. If compassion is important to me, I am going to feel a sense of dissonance, of tension, if I'm not also caring for my own body well. So, did that answer your question? I go in circles sometimes, and it's really fun for me, but I often wonder, do you understand what I'm saying?
So you started off by saying that the action comes from understanding the big why and why you're going to be doing this, right? If you don't get that why in place, then the reason
you don't have the motivation. Yes.
Correct. The reason for doing it disappears, and then you're just doing it because someone's told you to do it.
Yes.
Right.
And that doesn't ever work.
Doesn't ever work.
No.
So I think action is an important part of designing and creating your life. What are the other elements that are critical for us to understand for creating and designing this life of ours?
Yeah, I think that consistency is really important, and giving ourselves permission also to begin again. So consistency and also compassion for ourselves, right? So taking action is important. Getting consistent with our behaviors is important, but then also giving ourselves permission to begin again. So kindness and gentleness with ourselves when we mess it up, because we are totally going to mess up over and over again, and we have permission to begin again. Having a group of people around you to support you, I think, is so important too. Community is one of my highest values, and I think we can get way more done together than we can ever do on our own. So that's another one of the components that I think is important. And that action component that you mentioned at the beginning, that's really the driver, right? Once I get started, right, it's like a ball rolling downhill. I've got momentum. Once I've got some momentum, then I can keep moving forward. But you're also going to need fuel to keep going. And you got to find out what works for you. Community works for me. Accountability works for me. But what works for you? Maybe it's a list. Maybe it is putting it on the calendar every day. But what's fun is that you get to experiment with the habits that work best for you. Maybe it is a reminder on your phone app that tells you to get up when you want to get up. But do experiment with those things and give yourself permission to explore all the rooms, right? That's the thing about a blueprint. You don't have to stay in one room. Let's go explore another one so that we can see if we can find some habits over here that work better for us in this season. Because the habits that worked for you when you were 18 years old are not going to work the same for you when you are 56 years old. Let's explore another room and find out what else is available to us over here. And what's beautiful, of course, is that the human race has a lot of wisdom behind it. There are a lot of books that you can read, a lot of wonderful podcasts to listen to, and a lot of people with beautiful wisdom that are more than willing to share. So get some people on your team. I think that's a really important one too.
Getting people on your team, and like you said, community is a very important value of yours.
Mm-hmm.
How did that come about for you?
Well, I think out of failure, right? I think that growing up, as I mentioned, I lived in a dysfunctional home. My dad was alcoholic. My mom was codependent. And dysfunctional family systems can lead to isolation. And when you're isolated, you can tend to get in habits that are just not healthy for you. And I think COVID was such a great place for us to recognize our tendency towards isolation and getting really comfortable in isolation. And thankfully, we're starting to come out of that more. Thankfully, we have Zoom. I mean, Ashdin, I wouldn't have had the opportunity to meet you had it not been for Zoom. I mean, COVID gave us lots of gifts, right?
Absolutely.
But as human beings, we do tend to isolate when we can feel like we're not doing it well, like we're not living up to our own expectations. And the invitation is to reach out to someone and say, hey, I'm going through this thing, or I need help with this, right? Like one of my leaning in and letting go steps is giving yourself permission to ask for help, because we can tend to try to go it alone. And there are a whole bunch of movies that make it look like going it alone will really work, but I don't really know anyone who's able to do that and do it really well. So you need a team. Get yourself a team.
How would you go about making a team for yourself? Because I know it's one thing to say, community is important, get a team.
Yeah.
But then learning to trust people, especially when you are growing up in a situation like this where trust is something that has disappeared from your life. Yeah. How do you begin to trust a team? How do you start choosing people? How do you start working with them?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think one of the easiest, best ways to get started is to find people that are like-minded. Find people that are like-minded. It doesn't have to be everything, but choose something. So I like plants. And one of the things, I like plants and people, but one of the things I wanted to do was learn how things grow. Learn how soil works, learn how plants. I just think it's fantastic how trees are always reaching towards the sky. They know what to do. They lose their leaves in the fall. They come back in the spring. They just know what to do. And creation is beautiful. And they're assorted, right?
They're sorted. Yeah. We are confused. They know what they want.
Yes. And so start with something that you enjoy. Get in a running club, get in a plant club, join something that is of interest to you and get around some people that are like-minded. That's a great way to start. I think that there is a tendency to believe that we're alone. There has been, I think, during COVID, a really deep sense of loneliness in the world and a sense that we are all alone. Well, it's not true. If you have breath in your lungs, you are approved, you are accepted, you have something valuable to give to the world. And all you got to do is pick up the phone and say, hey, I know, we haven't talked for a while, but I was thinking of you and I'm wondering how you're doing. And I'd love to tell you how I'm doing. And we certainly risk rejection when we take that step. But rejection builds resilience. And any salesperson will tell you that, right? That you got to ask you've got to risk the rejection in order to find the reward. You got to risk the rejection. So in order to create a team, I think you start by finding like-minded people, you join something, and then, you have communication with people. You talk to people and you find out, are we going kind of down the same path? Let's try doing this together for a little bit. And yeah, you're going to have to take a risk. And yeah, people are going to let you down because we're human. And we're all going to let one another down at times. And that's when we have an opportunity to exercise compassion for one another, exercise forgiveness for one another. And why do we do that? Because we know we're going to need it. I'm going to need mercy. I'm going to need grace. I'm going to need forgiveness. So I am going to definitely extend it to you if you make a mistake, because I know I'm going to make plenty of them.
Oh, yes. And it's practice for yourself, right?
Yes.
Practicing it with somebody else.
It is practice. I also think that there are a lot of good tools for building teams. There are lots of good books, strengths for teams, strength finders for teams. I think, again, the Enneagram is a really great tool for team building because you can determine how a person is wired and their strengths and weaknesses and their natural tendencies. You don't want to have all Enneagram 8s on a team because they will all try to lead and no one will be willing to follow. Right? You don't want to have all Enneagram 2s. That's what I am. You don't want to have all of that on a team because everybody's just going to be helping one another and we're just going to end up, not. Well, actually, it would be okay. It wouldn't be terrible, but we might not get as far because we need people who are willing to do the hard work of, going on the front row and leading and working hard. So
interesting. So you can actually use these tools to design your team, get people together, choose like-minded people, choose complementary people as well.
Yes.
And then create this team of yours.
Absolutely.
Fantastic.
We're going to take a quick break. See you on the other side.
You're the people pleaser, right? Oh, yes. Or then desperately seeking the one? Oh, wait, you're the one who doesn't think they're ever good enough. Oh. So much drama. And for what? Is it doing you any good? Listen to me. I'm Chetna, your favorite positive action coach. Yes, I'm the one who has been dropping all those truth bombs on every episode. Oh, no. And it's time you learn to say no to drama. That's also what my podcast is called. And a new episode is out every Monday and Wednesday on the IBM Podcast app, website, as well as all major podcasting platforms.
Welcome back. All right, let's jump into the conversation.
I had a strange question for you. So one is, you've almost had 3 different lives, right? And from your work perspective, right?
I'm in my third life right now. It's like a cat.
Imagine how many more. It's fantastic.
It's great.
What are some of the top 3 habits of each of these lives that you learned, that you picked up on? Like as a news anchor, you would have a very different life structure and habits. As a pastor, you would have a different one. Right? So how are they different?
Oh, I like this question a lot. That's a really good one. I think when I was in television news, one of the habits that I had to be in that was really helpful at the time, but no longer served me well now, is to ask questions, to get people to share their deepest thoughts and feelings. In fact, in television news, I got to be honest with you, one of the things that I wanted to do was to get people to cry on TV. And I am not proud of that, but I was really good at that. I was really good at getting to the bottom of people's pain pretty quickly and then getting them to reveal it. And I am not proud of that. That's manipulative. I'm not proud of that.
And it seeps into life as well, right? You end up doing that with your friends.
Yes, it can seep into life as well. So I was really good at asking really unimportant questions, or let's see, a better word for that might be inappropriate questions for the level of relationship that I had with people. And so that's probably one of them, right? Like I was really good at asking really invasive. That's the word I was looking for. I was really good at asking really invasive questions. In pastoring, well, the habits that I learned in pastoring, I continue most of those now, right? Like getting up early in the morning and spending time in meditation and prayer. That's been really important to me. I started off with just like 5 minutes a day in the morning. And now I'm up to like 90 minutes of time where I spend time reading literature that is spiritual in nature, where I spend time in prayer and meditation, and where I invite myself into the deeper questions. What do I need? Who do I need it from? What is my deepest longing? And I think in my time in pastoring, those were some of the questions. I started to ask some of the deeper questions that really only we can answer for ourselves. No one can answer those for us. So I guess maybe it's fun talking to you about this question, because what I'm noticing is this pattern of listening and asking questions, but the level of questions has changed over the years. And that's pretty fun to think about, because as a coach, it's what we do now. We help ask open-ended questions, not because we want to know, not because it's for us to even know, but because these questions help people process who they are and who they want to be. And it's been the evolution of asking questions is probably what I have learned along the way. Yeah.
What are your 3 favorite questions that you like asking people?
What do you want? What do you want? What is your deepest longing? And these aren't questions that you can necessarily answer right off the top of your head. They're questions you really have to sit with. What do you want? What is your deepest longing? What does your ideal life look like? Who do you want to be? How do you want to show up in the world? What do you want people to say about you after you're gone? What do you want your children to remember about you? That's a lot. How about this one? What do you need and who do you need it from?
That's a big one.
Yeah, because I think we can tend to expect people to give us things that only our higher power can give to us, right? Yeah.
Very often we think people, you're right, because we don't see people as people. We see them as our relationships, and our relationships are not people. Right? And then we expect so much more from them. And like you said, we're expecting things that we would expect from God or from a higher power instead of this person.
Yes. And one of my favorite questions to ask after a question like that is, what is your relationship with blank? So what is your relationship with criticism? What is your relationship with harsh words? What is your relationship with food? What is your relationship with electronics? What is your relationship with conversations? So that's one of my favorite lines of questioning also.
That last one is a fantastic one. Like you can just go through your entire life and just keep asking, what's my relationship with this? What's my relationship with this? Right?
Yes, because we have a relationship with everything we interact with.
Correct. Absolutely.
Right?
And
but
even
we don't
though we've
think
just
about
met,
it.
we've created a relationship, right? It
yes,
is,
we have.
And we just start creating these as we start moving in life. And you might as well, coming back to the topic, create and design relationships that are good, relationships that are working for you, relationships that are helping you towards that awesome life that you want.
That's right. Healthy and fulfilling relationships are the kinds that we want, for sure. Yeah.
Absolutely. Tania, this was a fantastic conversation. Anything else you want to leave our audience with that we missed out, that you feel that's important that we need to touch upon?
I feel like it would be important just to realize and recognize that you can do this. You can design a life you love. I think it is easy to get stuck thinking that the circumstances we've created in our lives and some of the things that have happened to us, right? It's easy to think that it'll never get any better. And it's not true. That's a lie. That's a lie that I'm believing when I get stuck there. And you can create a life you'll love. And it's going to be easier than you think it is. And listen to Ashdin, because he talks about this. It's about taking one little step at a time. It's about taking one small step at a time. In fact, just one step is going to make a huge difference in your life, right? So, and as you gain confidence and trust yourself more, this gets easier and it actually gets to be really fun. It's a very fun process, learning to let go of habits that no longer serve you well to design a life you love. Believe it or not, it's a lot of fun. And there might be broccoli along the way too, and you might not like that, but it's part of the process, and eventually you'll learn to love it. What's your most hated vegetable, Ashdin?
Out here we call it Karela. It's called bitter gourd.
Yeah, that sounds terrible.
It sounds horrible and it tastes horrible. Yeah, absolutely. If there's one thing that I would be happy giving up in life, it would be that.
Yeah, you can get rid of that off the face of the earth, right? That's so funny. That's awesome. Yeah, but you can do it. And I believe in you. And there are lots of other people who will come alongside you. It doesn't have to be me or Ashdin, although we would love to, but you can do this. We believe in you.
Superb. Tania, how can people get in touch with you?
Yeah.
Where can they continue this conversation with you?
Yes, I am on Instagram at Tonia B. Lyon, Tonia, B as in boy, Lyon. I've got 10-minute mindfulness videos on there too, which you might enjoy if you were interested in learning more about mindfulness. And then our website is myunscripted.life, myunscripted.life.
Superb. Thank you so much for coming on the Habit Coach podcast. I absolutely love this.
It was really, really fun. We'll have to hang out again sometime.
Dan, I was just about to say the same thing. Superb. Now, if you like this podcast, don't forget to check out other interesting podcasts on the IVM network. You can listen to us on the IVM Podcast app or ivmpodcast.com. You can also follow us on social media. We are at IVM Podcast on Twitter and Instagram. If you want to reach out to me, I am at Ashdin Doc on Twitter and Instagram. We have a brand new habit coaching online course, quizzes, videos, and a lot more on the website awesome180.com. So check it out now.
Hey, it's been another great week on the IVM Podcast Network. On Think Fast, Varun and Suchita discuss Zakir Khan's biryani brand and the PVR Inox merger. On The Longest Constitution, Priya talks about the legal aspects of cow slaughter in India and how it affects the livelihoods of butchers and other communities. On Big Talk with Tiny Humans, Devi Shobha and Meghna share tips on how we can motivate our kids to do better without being a nag. On Hansavani, here's the story Zehen Mein Atka Hua Sa Kuch. It explores the history of the bloodbath and tragedy brought on by religious conflicts. And on Say No to Drama, Chetna decodes the concept of green flags at work and the ones you should look out for. Do follow us on social media. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And remember, if you're enjoying this show or any of our other shows for that matter, please do tell a friend. Also, don't forget to rate us on any of the platforms you're listening to us on, including the one you're listening to us on now. And also, please do check us out on YouTube. We have a number of channels. They're all available on ivmpodcast.com/YouTube. We're also doing a small listener survey to help us understand you, the listener, better, and how you like our shows, how you respond to the advertising, and so on. We'd really appreciate it if you could spare a few minutes to fill it out. It's at ivmpodcast.com/survey. And finally, we'd like to thank our sponsors on the network this week, SBI Life Insurance, India Water Portal, and Jupiter, a digital banking app. Thank you so much for making this possible.
Remember the days when our granny used to narrate once upon a time stories? Let's bring back the good old days of moral stories with Storytime Tamil. Hi, I am Ravishankar Balachandran, host of Storytime Tamil podcast. I would like you to entertain and educate your children with stories from Storytime Tamil. Tune in to the new episode sharp at 7 p.m. every day on IVM website, IVM podcast app, YouTube channel, or wherever you get your podcast from.